Hey, what's up? Stephanie, the English coach here from EnglishFulltime.com. Today in this video, I want to talk to you guys about the idea of speaking like a native speaker, what this means, and should you do it, right? Now, some people think that they should lose their accent completely, and other people feel like, no, my accent is part of my identity. I don't want to lose it. So share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you guys think, what my audience thinks, right? I want to know if you guys are leaning more toward, no, I want to retain my accent because it's part of my identity, or I want to lose it completely. And I'm going to talk to you guys about my viewpoint on this subject, okay? So first of all, I think that when people say speak like a native, they're not necessarily saying I want to sound exactly like a native speaker. Now, with this said, there are some people who do mean that. And then there are other people who say like a native, as in I want to speak fluently and clearly, and I want to be understood, and I want to be able to connect my speech, and I want to feel as good in English as I feel in my native language, okay? So the definition, there is no consensus, I guess, as to what the definition of like a native is. So there's a lot of contention around this phrase, right? Like, people get really upset about it. Some people don't care about it. So yeah, we're gonna keep talking about this. We're gonna dissect it a little bit today. So the meaning of like a native, for some people it means sounding and speaking exactly like a native speaker. And for other people, it just means, no, feeling comfortable in the language, like as comfortable as you feel in your native language. Now let's talk about accent. Should you lose your accent and try to sound exactly like a native speaker, or should you retain your accent? I'm gonna speak here from personal experience. I believe that the goal should be communicating clearly and confidently, and that's it. The rest is like a cherry on top, right? If you sound almost exactly like a native speaker, congratulations, that's awesome. But that doesn't mean that if someone doesn't sound like a native speaker, that their English is any less or anything like that, okay? So my opinion on this has evolved over the last decade. Now, let me tell you guys something that's pretty personal, okay? And this could be something that you guys, some of you are going through, and it caused a lot of turmoil in my life. Wow, we are doing good with the vocabulary today. I just need to give myself a little pat on the back for that one. Okay, no, but seriously, when I first started learning Spanish, okay, for those of you who don't know, my story in a nutshell is that my parents are from Argentina and they immigrated to the US, okay? Now it's a little more complicated than that because my grandparents, 3 of them, were immigrants from Europe. So essentially I come from a long line of immigrants. That's what I tell people. And I've had I used to have an identity crisis over this because my dad came from a German family, but my parents were born in Argentina. My dad was raised in Argentina and in the USA. I was born in the USA, but I never learned Spanish. So I had this whole identity crisis over who I was, right? I didn't know who I was. I felt like I didn't belong to any group of people, and people are always seeking to belong, right? Thankfully now, I don't care about any of that. I know who I am, I'm secure in my identity, and all of that is my past, right? But before I didn't know what my identity was. And so I wanted to learn Spanish, and that was like my number one desire. I was 14 years old and I decided I want to get fluent in this language. This is the language of my family. And I fantasized about this idea of getting super fluent and speaking like a native speaker. And I fantasized about people mistaking me for a native Spanish speaker. And the idea was just so romantic and romanticized in my head. And I imagined that I was just this, I don't know, like mysterious person. Like people would look at me and be like, wow, like she knows a foreign language. Wow. Super embarrassing admitting that now, but it's also funny. And I bet some people can relate. So I'm glad I can talk about this confidently now because I think it can help some people. But essentially, I created this whole thing in my head, this like a complex, essentially. I created my own complex because I wasn't a native Spanish speaker. I will never be a native Spanish speaker. Spanish will never be my mother tongue, okay? But I was in some kind of denial. Like I really wanted that. Like I wanted people to think that I was a native Spanish speaker. And so what did that do? That caused me to obsess over every mistake. It caused me to obsess over my pronunciation, over grammar, everything. And beyond obsess about all of this, it caused me to not be able to speak because I was so afraid. I was living in fear. I was afraid of making mistakes. I was afraid of people finding out my real identity, which is I'm a native English speaker. And I was afraid of people discovering this because I wanted to create this illusion that I was somebody that I wasn't. This is so dangerous, you guys. Anytime you try to pretend that you're somebody that you're not, it's just not good, okay? It's not good for your stress levels. It's not good for your psyche. It's not good for you. It's not good for your happiness. I didn't know this and I was a teenager, okay? And I had nobody to help me through this whole identity crisis thing. It made learning the language very difficult for me because when you're too afraid to speak, you can't practice. If you don't practice, you don't improve. And if you don't make mistakes, you don't improve. We need to make mistakes because that's how we learn. It's like all of this is super logical now, but before I didn't get it. I didn't know what I was doing, right? And this is also now why I'm the English coach, because I've learned so many of these things through my experiences and through the experiences of my students. It's like I can look back and tell you where I've been and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's off topic. What? Coming back, coming full circle. Okay, so I had this huge identity crisis, but the good thing is, since I was so obsessed with sounding exactly like a native speaker, I developed a really good accent, okay? I really listened, I imitated, I really learned how to imitate natives and how to sound native-like, okay? And now when I speak Spanish, and I do have a video in Spanish, I'll link it up here, okay? Now when I speak Spanish, a lot of people say that I sound like a native speaker. So I achieved my dream. I achieved what I wanted, right? A lot of people say that I sound like a native Spanish speaker, and depending on how good my Spanish is that day, because if time goes by and I don't speak Spanish for a long time, I do get a little rusty, and this is normal. And we can talk about this in another video. It happens to people even when you're fluent. But yeah, depending on how good my Spanish is, maybe I've gone a week and I've only spoken Spanish, so my Spanish is lit, all right? It's on fire, it's amazing. Then yeah, people go, oh my gosh, like this is a native Spanish speaker that I'm talking to. Or maybe they think I'm a native Spanish speaker, but from a different Spanish speaking country. Either way, like, I achieved my dream, but at what cost? There was a huge cost. And if I could go back in time and do things differently, I absolutely would. I think this obsession with sounding exactly like a native, and not just sounding like a native, but passing for a native, okay? Passing, that's what I think is very unhealthy when you have this obsession with the desire to pass as a native, because that means that you are not okay with your identity. You are not a native English speaker, okay? And that's okay. You don't have to be. And I wish somebody would have told me that. I wish when I was in high school and I was insecure, I wish somebody would say, there's nothing wrong with not being a native speaker. There's nothing wrong with that. You can learn languages, embrace languages, speak fluently, and enjoy who you are, right? And I didn't have that. And it really makes me sad and almost angry, like at the amount of years that I wasted being afraid of speaking because people would realize that I wasn't a native Spanish speaker. Okay, so I created this huge complex in my mind that still affects me occasionally to this day. I'm still trying to undo that. But now let me tell you guys how I am when it comes to speaking other languages, because now I'm at a place where I love languages. I love listening to music in other languages. I love watching TV shows in other languages, and I'm passively absorbing a few different languages, okay? So I'm learning Portuguese, I'm learning Italian, and I'm learning French, all right? So now, here's how I am with these languages. Do I care about passing as a native speaker? No, I don't care at all. I don't want people to think I'm a native Italian speaker or a native Spanish speaker or a native French speaker, okay? I don't care. That is not my goal. However, I love accents. I love imitating native speakers. I love sounding like a native. I love working on my pronunciation. I love learning new sounds. I love training my mouth. So when I practice these languages, I am going for authentic pronunciation, okay? I want to sound like a native. I don't want to just be lazy and use English pronunciation in foreign languages, because that's hard for other people to understand and it's no fun at all. I really, really like learning new sounds and saying words that sound completely foreign to me until they sound natural to me. I love that. I love the whole transformation. So that's how I see it now, and I think that that's a very healthy way to view languages, and I encourage you to view English in the same way. You don't have to pass as a native speaker, but there's nothing wrong with obsessing over pronunciation and intonation and you trying to sound as native-like as possible just because you love it. There's nothing wrong with that. And this also extends beyond pronunciation. Sounding like a native can also have to do with the way you put your sentences together. I really, really like sounding like a native in other languages and putting sentences together in phrases the way a native speaker would. But sometimes it's like, I get lazy and I don't remember how to say it the way a native speaker would. So I just, translate directly, even though I don't do this very often. Once in a while, it's kind of like a tool in the toolbox. If you need it, you grab it and you use it. If I don't know how to say something the way a native speaker would say it, I say it however I want to say it, translating the idea from English into that language. And it usually works out. And that makes me feel amazing, because it makes me feel like, yeah, I learned these languages and I can use them however I want, and nobody can tell me how to use it or how not to use it or how I should sound. And not that nobody can tell me, but that I don't have to let my own brain or my own ego, there we go, because it's not my brain, it's my ego. I don't have to let my ego control me and tell me that my language skills aren't good enough, right? I can use it how I want to use it and feel confident doing it. All right, so I hope that this was helpful, you guys. Like, seriously, again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to sound like a native, working on your pronunciation, sounding as authentic as possible, working on your accent, but don't let your ego drive you crazy by making you believe that you have to pass as a native speaker when you're not a native speaker. Embrace your identity, who you are, where you're from, the language that you speak, the culture that you're from. There's so much history there. There's so many beautiful things there, and no one is better than anybody else, okay? So let's just end on that note. And if you are interested in working on your pronunciation with me, then I want to invite you to join my complete pronunciation course. Use the link in the description and sign up below. Right now, we are creating the course and testing it with students. We're going to launch a beta version very soon. So if you want to get more information about that, just sign up for it and we'll let you know when it's ready. All right, you guys, that's it. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful. Give it a thumbs up if it was helpful. If you are not a subscriber, but you watch my videos and you enjoy them, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button, okay? That's it, you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.